Arizona is in the midst of a worsening water crisis, and the effects of the western mega-drought are trickling down on cattle ranchers in Arizona.
Since 2019, a total of 336,000 cattle have been sold through auction across the state, according to the Arizona Cattle Growers Association.
Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum tonight shows us how the drought combined with federal regulations are driving ranchers to sell their cattle.
Chino Valley in Yavapai County. Just 7 miles north of Prescott is a barn. Inside, all eyes focused on the large herbivores front and center. Cattle auction is underway. And here's Lisa Kahn looking to buy. The owner of Kahn Cattle Company has a ranch about 45 minutes away.
We're in a town called Perkinsville, which has about a population of 11. There are 3 or 4 ranches here, and that's about it.
But like many ranchers across the Southwest, she's also had to make cuts to the herd. In Arizona, ranchers lease allotments of federal land for livestock grazing. The U.S. Forest Service monitors drought conditions, evaluates climate trends, and the availability of water and forage, ultimately determining the appropriate number of livestock that can graze on the land. In a statement to Fox 10, a spokesperson says it is often necessary to adjust livestock numbers following environmental stressors such as fire or extended drought in order to protect soils and vegetation and prevent ecosystem degradation. In January 2020, Lisa was told to remove her cattle off the allotment.
Everything was too dry. There wasn't enough rain to grow food. So there was nothing for the cattle to eat, and to boot, in our dirt tanks where they drink that are scattered all over the allotment, there was no water in them.
She says half of the herd had to be sold.
The bottom line is it costs a lot of money to get kicked off your allotment.
Now, more than 2 years later, she's growing the herd back slowly.
Total between the ranch and the farm, we have about 120 head mother cows. And hopefully about 70 or 80 calves that we're either going to retain as feeders or sell at the auction.
Arizona, heavily owned by the federal government. A lot of farmers and ranchers are reliant on those lands.
Daniel Munch is an economist with the American Farm Bureau Federation. Earlier this summer, the AFBF conducted a survey on ranchers and farmers across the western, southwest, and central plains regions, receiving a little more than 650 responses from 15 states, including Arizona. For a second straight year in a row, 66% of respondents sold portions of their herd or flock due to the drought. The survey shows out of the 67% of ranchers who cut herd size in 2021, nearly half of them further reduced herd size this year. 37% plan to maintain the reduced herd size, while 14% want to rebuild the herd in the near future. Munch says the ongoing drought can devastate a rancher's livelihood.
We already have reports of ranchers closing down their operations either temporarily or indefinitely because they no longer can support the animals on their land.
Munch's report found that 90% of respondents saw increases in local feed costs linked to the drought.
It's tremendously expensive to feed your cows, especially 100 head.
According to the U.S. Drought Monitor, parts of Arizona are in severe drought, some in moderate drought, and other portions are abnormally dry after 2 active monsoon seasons.
But during the pandemic, we kind of wanted to rethink how we went about things.
Lisa's son, Alexander Kahn, knew they had to innovate, starting a website under Moon River Beef, marketing how their cattle was raised, allowing customers to order online and have meat delivered straight to their home at the height of the pandemic. The main challenges: navigating the drought and having to move cattle off federal land.
We've been leasing land and we have irrigated pastures where we've been putting our other cattle so that we can, continue to have a viable business.
Last month, the Arizona Cattle Growers Association wrote a letter to the Prescott National Forest Supervisor asking that decisions to stock allotments with cattle are based on facts and science, transparent and fair to permittees.
They could cut you off your allotment and you're done. Your business is dead. You can't earn a living anymore. That's a serious consequence. That the economics behind it, the human stories behind it of people just losing everything.
We're trying to create a better working relationship with the Forest Service so that they can experience our needs and we can try and move to the middle and meet theirs as well.
For consumers, it means over the next 2-3 years, prices are going to increase once we cut through all that excess supply from heavily liquidated cattle counts.
Alexander believes ranching is a generational business. Sustainability over the next several decades will always be at top of mind as climate change and the drought threaten this way of life.
But I think there's this misconception that ranchers are anti-environment, or, you know, they don't care about the drought, or they're just, you know, grazing their herds and destroying all the grasses and moving on. And that's not the case. Most ranches in Arizona are quite small, and so we have to conserve our resources in order to survive.
For Fox 10 Investigates, I'm Justin Lum.
In the meantime, the Center for Biological Diversity and the Maricopa Audubon Society warned that a lawsuit will be filed against the Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Advocates for endangered and species in aquatic areas of the Tonto National Forest call for officials restricting cattle grazing they say is destructive.